Atomic habits. Frequently asked questions. Common questions and where you'll find the answers. The first law. How can I establish a new routine? There are many ways to build a new habit, but one of the first strategies I recommend is a technique I call habit stacking. This method was popularized by Professor B.J. Fogg, who calls it the Tiny Habits Recipe and teaches it in his Tiny Habits program. The key idea is to stack your new habit on top of a current habit. That is, your current behavior becomes the cue for your new behavior. The stacking habit formula is after current habit, I will new habit. For example, after I put on my running shoes, I will fill up my water bottle. By creating simple sets of rules, you can make it easier to remember when to perform a new habit. For more examples of habit stacking, see Chapter 5. How do I know if a habit is good or bad? Technically speaking, habits aren't good or bad. It might be better to call them effective or ineffective. If a habit effectively solves the problem you are facing, then you'll have a reason to repeat it. All habits serve you in some way, even the bad ones, which is why you do them. Biting your nails might ease your stress or anxiety, for example. However, people still use the terms good habit and bad habit all the time, and I think there is a simple way to distinguish between the two. Whether a habit is good or bad usually depends on the long-term benefits or consequences of the behavior. Generally speaking, good habits will have net positive outcomes in the long run. Bad habits will have net negative outcomes. Smoking a cigarette may reduce stress right now. That's how it's serving you. But it's not a healthy long-term behavior. It might be effective in the short run, but it tends to be harmful over time. The longer you expand the time scale, the more clearly you can notice the differences between good and bad habits. For more on the long-term outcomes of habits, see chapters 1, 4, and 15. How can I recognize and avoid the triggers that lead to bad habits? One of the most practical ways to eliminate a bad habit is to reduce exposure to the cue that causes it. For example, if you seem to be easily distracted by your phone and can't get any work done, then turning off notifications or even leaving your phone in another room for a few hours can provide an immediate productivity boost. When the cues that cause distraction and ineffective behavior are eliminated, bad habits often fade away. Of course, before you can eliminate the cues that prompt your bad habits, you have to recognize them. One way to do this is to carry a 3x5 note card in your pocket or create a new note on your phone. Whenever you find yourself repeating a bad habit, write down the following 5 things. 1. Who am I with? 2. What am I doing right now? 3. Where am I? 4. When is it? 5. What emotions are driving my actions? If you do this for a week or two, you'll often notice some patterns that seem to precede your habit. Are you usually in the same place or around the same people? Does it happen at the same time of day? Or do you tend to feel a certain way before you do the habit? Once you have a good idea of what triggers your bad behavior, you can search for ways to eliminate or avoid the cue that causes it. This practice is an inversion of the first law of behavior change. Rather than make it obvious, you can make it invisible. I'm often surprised by how effective simple changes like these can be. Remove a single cue, and the entire habit often fades away. For more on breaking bad habits, see chapters 7, 10, and 14. How can I create an environment conducive to good habits? Physical environment is one of the most overlooked drivers of habits and behavior change. Your habits are often triggered by what is obvious or available to you in your current environment. For example, if I walk into the kitchen and see a plate of cookies, I'll eat 1 or 10, even if I'm not hungry. We often want things simply because we are presented with them. Drive down any major road. It is no surprise we eat so much fast food when we are surrounded by it. It's hard to resist the pull of what engulfs us. Thankfully, you don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can also be the architect of it. Want to practice guitar more frequently? Place your guitar stand in the middle of your living room. Want to read more? Put a book on top of your pillow when you make your bed each morning. Read a few pages when you go to bed at night. If you want to make a habit a big part of your life, make the cue a big part of your environment. By sprinkling triggers throughout your surroundings, you increase the odds that you'll think about your habit throughout the day. Making a better decision is easier when the cues for good habits are right in front of you. Don't rely on willpower and self-control. It is a lot easier to stick to better habits when you are surrounded by better choices. Make the cues of your good habits obvious. For more on environment design, see chapters 6 and 12. Is it true you can never really break a bad habit? Sort of. You can break a habit, but you're unlikely to forget it. Once the mental grooves of habit have been carved into your brain, they are nearly impossible to remove entirely, even if they go unused for quite a while. This is not because it is impossible to remove a bad habit from your mind. Technically, you can recondition the brain and eliminate an old behavior, effectively breaking a bad habit. For example, imagine if you received a painful electric shock the next 10,000 times you tried to eat a donut. You would probably learn to hate donuts fairly quickly. It would no longer be satisfying, an inversion of the fourth law, and you would have no reason to repeat the action in the future. But in practice, it is hard to permanently delete a bad habit from your brain. Your best option is to use the 4 laws of behavior change to make your unwanted habits invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. For more on breaking bad habits, see chapters 7, 10, and 14. How can I develop self-control? Self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one. You may be able to resist temptation once or twice, but it's unlikely you can muster the willpower to override your desires every time. Instead of summoning a new dose of willpower whenever you want to do the right thing, your energy would be better spent optimizing your environment. For more on designing an environment where self-control is unnecessary, see chapters 6, 7, and 12. End of Atomic Habits FAQ, the first law.